Hi, I'm Paul Andrews, here to talk about my new Spot Ryve 115. There's a ton of mountain bikes out there, as you know, but none quite like this. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about what makes it unique. The standout feature, of course, is its carbon leaf spring that Spot calls the living link, which I've also discussed in an On the Bike video. But there are a lot of little touches and other attentions to detail that separate the Ryve from the pack. By way of background, I've been mountain biking for nearly 3 decades. I'm just an average rider, but through sheer longevity, I do have a broad basis of comparison. Also, I pay for the Ryve out of my own pocket, so nothing in this video is sponsored. Spot's a small family-owned and not very well-known bike maker based in Golden, Colorado. It sells direct-to-consumer only, which keeps its pricing really attractive, but you won't find its bikes in stores. It's been around for a while, but only got into full suspension a few years ago, and in 2019 it introduced the Ryve at 2 travel settings, 100mm and 115mm. The former is pretty much a dedicated race machine, but the Ryve 115, that's a different breed. That's a crossover trail, cross-country, a little bit of all mountain in a category increasingly called downcountry. By that's meant a short travel 29er, which is very capable on the climbs but doesn't sacrifice too much on the downhills. First, let's look at the Ryve's numbers. By the way, the ye old English term Ryve means to pierce or tear up, as in, I'm guessing, shredding a trail. Unlike today's trend, even for downcountry bikes, the Ryve is not particularly slack or long, with a size large head angle of 67.4 degrees and a seat angle at 75 degrees, reach at 470mm, wheelbase 46.8 inches, and 17.1 inch chain stays. It's lively and responsive, but without being either twitchy on the one hand or lazy and wallowy on the other. I've been looking for a bike like this for some time, particularly for summer high country all-day riding. And over the course of the last few years, I've owned a Pivot Mach 429 Carbon, Evo following MB, Pivot Mach 429 Trail, and I've demoed the Ripley from Ibis and the Santa Cruz Tallboy. The original Pivot 429C came closest to what I'm after, but it has a steep head angle, slack seat angle, and rear travel of only 100mm. Hasn't quite kept up with the advances in geometry and suspension over the years, and it's 7 years old. So of the current downcountry flock, only the folks at Ibis really matched what I was after. And the Ripley's, it's pretty similar to the Ryve, but Spot's clever suspension hack kind of won me over. Living Link doesn't quite capture everything Spot's carbon leaf pulls off. It's more like an invisible hand. On a typical full suspension mountain bike, the pivot link is neutral. It connects things up, but otherwise it doesn't provide any active input. Spot's leaf spring actually enhances shock performance by pushing back when compressed. So on drops and jumps, that invisible hand helps cushion the landing, while on climbs it helps nudge you over step-ups, roots, and switchbacks. It's particularly noticeable through the mid-stroke, where most suspensions kind of go lax, and you're always fiddling with your shock to try and get that mid-stroke to work right. To me, the most remarkable part, though, is what I call the fatigue assist function of the carbon leaf spring. When you get tired and your cadence gets a bit uneven, the leaf spring helps boost you through those dead spots on your pedal stroke. You actually feel stronger because of that invisible hand pushing you along. Spot calls this stored energy, and it's there when you need it in just the right amount. I've heard the Ryve compared to riding a hardtail in this way, but and while it's stiff and doesn't bob, it lacks the hardtail's harshness and is far more trail compliant. It really sticks to the trail. Notably, you never want to lock out the shock. In fact, the bike actually performs worse if you do. I've never ever ridden a full suspension bike where I never ever wanted to lock the shock out. So this is something new. It's the kind of thing that's so different from typical bike suspension. You really have to experience it to understand it, which is harder than it should be. Since Spot doesn't sell through distributors, it's difficult to get a demo. The company does offer a 30-day return if you don't like the bike, but I found it easier to track down a Ryve 115 owner in my area on Facebook, and he let me take his bike out for a spin very generously. It didn't take long to convince me, though, that the carbon leaf was the real deal. There's also a bunch of nice touches to the Ryve. The lower shock cradle is vented with a sizable opening for mud, water, and trail trash to flow through. The Spot folks have made shock setup real easy. You just use your riding weight for PSI, and this is such a snap after a lifetime of trying to remember different settings for different bikes. Ryve build kits come standard with the bike yoke dropper, which is by far my favorite after suffering through all the major brands over the years. Spot also ships the bike in a double wide box with wheels safely partitioned from the frame set. It's a snap to put the bike together. I got the basic build on sale, at a really good price, and I swapped out pretty much everything except the bike yoke, but that's for another video. The Ryve 115 weighs, the frame set weighs 5.75 pounds. It's lighter than most other downcountry bikes except for the Ripley. The cheapest build comes in at 27 pounds, albeit with a tire set it isn't quite up to Pacific Northwest standards. By the time I was through customizing, my Ryve 115 tilted the scales at 27 pounds 3 ounces. Not as light as I'd like, but quite a bit lighter than its 30-pound plus downcountry cousins. My racer friend's Ryve 115 is around 25 pounds though, so lighter is certainly doable. And I'm in the camp that says, yeah, sorry, weight does matter. I'm not a particularly aggressive rider, but I'm looking forward to stretching my Ryve out a bit when the drier weather hits. I want to see how far I can take that leaf spring. For now, the Ryve 115 is my go bike for nearly all everyday riding. As I like to say, I think the folks at Spot are really on to something.